now we're going to do our first impressions on one show that has been pretty controversial throughout, everywhere right now. And even though we were fans of the cartoon, how about the live action? Let's talk about it, shall we? And let's talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, we did talk about our thoughts about Avatar: The Last Airbender. We thought it was going to be fun and going to be exciting from all the special effects here and there. But now we both watched the first 2 episodes of the Avatar: The Last Airbender live action series, and amidst the whole controversy of like how it is from good and bad, is it that great? Is it that bad, etc.? It's time for us to actually portray our thoughts about this one series. Now, first off, let's talk about like this whole announcement thing. What were your thoughts as you heard about this announcement?
When I heard about this announcement, I was thinking to myself, really? Do we need another live action remake of a, beloved series? Really? Because here's the thing. The Avatar: The Last Airbender is something you just cannot touch, okay? The original series is a masterpiece of animation. And honestly, what could you really do with such a beloved series like this? Like, what could you really do with this? Like, are you going to rehash it? Are you going to make some changes? Because let me tell you, you're pretty much walking on eggshells in terms of that. Nickelodeon
was pretty much having Avatar as like their big thing. I mean, they made Avatar Studios, so they know that they were going to have a lot of things when it comes to Avatar: The Last Airbender, and lo and behold, we have the live action series. But again, there was like a lot of things that also came in, like the books of Kyoshi. I mean, I would imagine you have books of like the new Avatar book series, remember?
Yeah, I have the Rise of Kyoshi and Shadow of Kyoshi.
So they are making some more things to at least put in like the lore of Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, there's so much you could do with the lore of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and we're getting them in all shapes and forms. Why are we getting a live action remake that is unnecessary? We don't need it.
The one thing that kind of like reminds me of when it comes to live action remakes is the M. Night Shyamalan
movie. Do not mention that to me again, please.
I know. But I mean, okay, is it that bad compared to the live action series? Hopefully not, because like it looks impressive from the first things we saw, from the trailer to the announcements and all the cast and stuff.
Now my first impressions are it's pretty much midway. Like, it's not nearly as good as the original Avatar so far. Remember, first 2 episodes means first impressions. Like, so far, not nearly as good as the original, but not nearly as bad as that either.
So the thing is that when so many announcements came out, when it came to like the news about the Avatar: Last Airbender live action series, you kind of feel like, is it going to be good? Because there were some things that kind of made you feel like it may not be good. Like, for example, the creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender ended up like not being a part of the live action series. Asaka having some changes here and there for his character, and a lot of things that pretty much says like, when you go into the first episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, are we really going to be watching something that's going to be reflecting towards the series, the animated series, the original series?
Now, here's the thing: the trailers did look epic. But those could be deceiving. Beyond the trailers, I saw some particular red flags. Like you said, you just pointed out that the creators left, which is a massive red flag. Like, oh my gosh. It shows how dissatisfied they were with how Netflix was handling the series. And you know what? If I end up hating them, I'm just like, okay, I don't blame them for leaving anymore. And then, of course, there's Sokka, we're going to touch upon later. And then you got them saying, oh, they want Avatar: Last Airbender to be like Game of Thrones. I'm just like, why?
Wait, where true to that?
The sources tell me that I've seen from sources saying that.
Well, I never heard of this particular news. Where did you hear this from?
Like, they want to take inspiration from Game of Thrones. It was from an article.
How could that be Game of Thrones when it's like?
That's what I'm asking.
Is it because Avatar he's the last Airbender? He is the Avatar. Is that the reason why we're kind of calling it Game of Thrones or something?
I don't know why. I'm pretty perplexed by this because of the fact of how why? Is it because, it's a live action fantasy setting or something like that? Oh, it has action epic scenes. with some fire and all that stuff. It's like, what exactly do they mean when they say, oh, it's going to be like Game of Thrones? I'm just like, I really hope that you try to be like the original. Don't be like anything else, just be like the original.
I don't know what newest article you're talking about, because I've never seen that one. It might be some sort of unreliable source to me. So it could be a fan source instead. So I don't know. It's interesting how I heard that just now.
I forget which article. Like I found it somewhere on like, social media. Then there was this like link to a particular, journaling site. But yeah, I've been seeing videos too. Like I've seen one video saying why this is a bad idea and all this stuff.
That was the beginning before the series started, right?
That announcement was before the series started.
Okay.
Netflix series started.
See, coming into this, when I heard about the whole controversial stuff here and there, I was like, you know what? I kind of like try to ignore the fact about that. If anything, like, let me come in with a fresh mind. Like, let me be a person that maybe, say, for example, have not seen the Avatar: The Last Airbender series, okay? And let me go in and see how this goes. So, hence why we started watching the show. And again, I have some opinions when it comes to it, but we'll talk about that later. So, let's actually talk about, like, certain things that I noticed. First off, originality. First episode, I don't think it actually was original that we actually get to see how Aang literally was in that block of ice, because when you saw in the animated series, he was already in a block of ice, but like in the live action series, we see how he became the quote avatar, or how he became the block in that block of ice or stuff. What were your thoughts on that being the first thing you saw in the live action series?
In terms of that, I sort of have mixed feelings about it. Like, okay, on one hand, I do like how they're establishing and introducing the character of Aang in the Netflix live action show by, telling us his origins, where he came from, his relationship with his friendship with Gyatso and the other airbenders. I like that because it really does, give us information on where he came from and all that stuff. But on the other hand, though, it sort of takes away the mystery aspect of the character.
Yeah.
Because when you see the first scene of the original, you see Sokka and Katara, they go fishing, and then they stumble upon a boy in an iceberg. And then once the iceberg breaks, and then, Aang pretty much collapses, and Aang and Katara, Sokka pretty much get to know each other. Like, you're left wondering, who is this boy? Just like Sokka and Katara are. And each episode builds upon Aang's character properly.
The beginning was weird because in the animated series, that whole origin story of Aang was actually further into season 1. I don't know. Like, I feel like it was okay because it kind of tells you, like, Aang was meant to be the Avatar when he was announced back in, when the Air Temple was still alive, to say. When you actually saw the animated series, the Air Temple was gone, and he was the last Airbender.
Yeah, hence the title Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, there was this episode of season 1 called The Storm, which did touch upon Aang and his origins, where he came from, back when the Air Temple was still alive, like way before the Fire Nation invaded them. And I thought that was really touching. That was really wholesome. But I do like what they did here too. On its own, they do introduce the character fine, and Gyatso still is such a wonderful father figure to Aang. Saying, "You are my friend. You're meant to be great," and all that stuff. And also, however, that's not the only key difference between the two episodes from each series. There's also the fact of how you actually see the Fire Nation actually do invade the Air Temples.
Yeah.
It's on camera.
So if anything, it does tell you like how the Air Temple ended up like being destroyed by the Fire Nation. Yeah. And it was all detailed, and it was kind of sad to actually see it, because like you saw like people getting like hurt, getting killed in the matter too. I mean, Yoza, for example, did die. And it was sad when you saw that in the first episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yeah,
you can't help but feel you can't help but feel bad for those poor airbenders that are facing the wrath of the Fire Nation,
because it was all preemptive. Like, they didn't know that they were going to invade. They knew that there was a war happening, but they didn't know they were going to invade that quickly. It was at a nighttime event, so I would imagine everybody was not prepared to see the Fire Nation attack the air temple. And lo and behold, when you saw what happened, like right in the first scene of the first episode, it was like, oh, the air benders are gone.
Yeah, and that's when you see the everything changed with the Fire Nation attacked line come into full play.
How do you feel about the grandma saying that?
I feel like, while she did her best, it doesn't compare to how, it was all said during, Katara's introduction and, the Avatar Airbender opening.
Well, she always says that every time in every opening of the episode.
She says it every time, and that's the thing. It's I do like that the grandma is saying it with such
remorse,
with such remorse and depth, but it doesn't compare to Katara saying it in the Avatar: Last Airbender opening every episode. But the grandma does give it her best. She does give her all, and
she was the one who would probably live throughout those 100 years. Remember, like according to what the tale says, and even in the introduction of Avatar: The Last Airbender. We heard about the whole Fire Nation attacking. The Avatar, only the Avatar, master of all four elements, can be able to withstand the war. But when we needed him most, he vanished, and this is what happened to Aang.
Yeah.
So I do like the fact that this whole introduction that came in when we see Aang get frozen in that block of ice, when the Avatar powers start to come in, and he starts to become engorged in that ice ball for 100 years. Apparently it's 100 years. I'm like, wow.
It was 100 years.
Yeah.
It was.
100 years have passed, and they couldn't find him until Sokka and Katara was able to find him in that, while they were fishing or something. So if anything, it does kind of have that originality here and there, but I think it also did talk more about what could be. I know that in that one episode, The Storm didn't really explain a lot, how the air temple got destroyed and how Aang got into that bowl of ice to say.
Yeah, so I think that's where I have to give the live action episode, credit, is that it really did try to, introduce us to Aang in its own way. It took its own direction. And I think that it stayed true to the characters. Who are being portrayed in the live action. While the story may have altered, it's the characters, how they're written, that really does from what I've seen so far, that really does stay true to the spirit of the original.
Exactly, yeah. And then when I look back in the first episode, I feel like it really did portray the first 3 episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender animated series, because it started off in that village. The Fire Nation did attack that village, and then we do go back to the air temple where everything was destroyed, and we get to see Aang become the Avatar. We get to see him get enraged when he knew that the air temple was gone. His powers goes unleashed. That literally happened those first 3 episodes.
That scene in the Southern Air Temple where Aang finds the skeletons of the airbenders that died, and then Aang looks with such remorse at first, but then he grows angry. Thus, his anger consumes him, and it makes him go into the Avatar state. My God, it is just, my heart was pouring for the poor guy.
I know, exactly. And then, it showed a lot well. It showed well over the animated series, but it showed a lot more, really good remorse and really good, passion when I saw that part happen. When you see Aang just get all sad, he gets angry because he's like, oh my God, why? And then because he's the last airbender. Yeah, I mean, it really does a good job when it came to that.
Yeah, that's what I will say, is that in terms of the scenes that, that pretty much repeat the scenes of the original series, I do feel for the most part, they really do, nail the mood, the tone, the atmosphere, and dare I say it, some of the acting is pretty good.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, but we'll talk more about that later. Again, I want to go back to originality, because when we go back to the second episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action series, we now go to the Kyoshi Island, and we get to see the Kyoshi warriors, and we also get to hear about Kyoshi herself. How do you feel about how they portrayed the Kyoshi warriors and Kyoshi herself? Let's talk about that first.
Of course, they portrayed the Kyoshi warriors as the same badass women that we have seen in the original, from the from the acting and all the way down to especially the choreography. Like they really do nail down the choreography of the fighting moves, and practicing the battle moves that have taken place in the Kyoshi village. Like they really do nail down the choreography down to a T, and also they really look authentic with the makeup.
I do love the whole makeup part too, because it made them look like those Kyoshi warriors that you saw, Suki, for example, and those other warriors in the Kyoshi warriors part. It was pretty cool.
And also they capture the fierce attitude of the Kyoshi warriors as well, especially Suki.
Yeah, exactly. Well, she's the leader of it all, so yeah. You get to see the village mother, who's also Suki's mom. And also this one interaction between Suki and Sokka. Like, I know that was also a part of the animated series, but how do you feel about that?
Okay, I'm just going to say this right now. I do not like what they did with Sokka here in this Netflix live action show. Like, I really don't understand why they took away a particular aspect of Sokka, because here's the thing, though. Sokka's sexism in the original is actually what makes him a more three-dimensional character, because it gives him a flaw to work on. It gives him a flaw to work on and grow from, which makes him a more well-rounded character.
Like, the first time I saw Sokka in that episode, he was just more of, like, being flirty to Suki. And then, like, when you see Suki and Sokka again, you feel like there's, like, a connection between both of them. And then you get to see them actually become, well, she kissed him in the end.
I think that's the problem with this is that due to them removing Sokka's sexism in the live action show, it sort of, it sort of takes away the value of Suki and Sokka's relationship, because it's Sokka pretty much learning that women could be as capable of fighting as the men, and Sokka, through fighting, like practicing with Suki, learns to form a bond, and it's Suki who helps Sokka learn the lesson.
Well, is that supposed to be like the meaning, though? Like, women can also fight?
It's also supposed to be that particular message to the original, like, definitely enhances it.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. Like, when I first saw Sokka, like, I understand he was, like, a flirtatious dude when he wanted to, like, talk to Suki like that. And then I just saw him become, like, a weakling or something.
And
like,
that's kind of thing. Like, with Sokka's motivation, like, with Sokka's mindset while practicing Suki is, I just want to be a better leader. And I'm just like, that's sort of a, that's not a strong enough, of a motivation or flaw to work with. It's not nearly as strong as what he had come to learn in the original.
Yeah, okay, so I understand your point there, but nonetheless, I mean, they kind of did really put emphasis on the Suki-Sokka relationship right then and there. And I thought that was just an ongoing thing in the first season, right? Because they kept on becoming sort of like in that relationship as you continued on with the animated series. So I don't know, it's just the first episode, but it feels like they're already going it off in a hitch already.
Yep, well, I mean, in the original, they were pretty on-off, and the reason why I say off is because, Sokka pretty much falls in love with a certain moon girl later on in the original. So.
But that will come up later. I think we'll come up later because we haven't seen the rest of the series, but I know that'll come up in season 1. I'm pretty sure it will.
It will. But I'm not saying, what's going to happen beyond, the first 2 episodes I've seen in the Netflix show. I'm just saying what happens in the original.
Yeah. Well, obviously, that's one flaw that I already pointed out. Sokka is not the same compared to the animated series. He's not like the really strong, manly guy that we thought he was, like, in the animated series compared to the live action series. So there was that. But there was also a particular scene in the second episode that kind of threw me off. Was Kyoshi actually appeared in that episode? Did Kyoshi appear in the animated series as the Avatar?
I remember Kyoshi has talked to Aang at some point in this series. It was definitely during season 3, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say Kyoshi was such a badass warrior.
Yeah. I'm trying to look back and see did Kyoshi pop up out of that fight, like when the Fire Nation was attacking the Kyoshi Island?
When the Fire Nation was attacking the Kyoshi Island, I'd have to go back and look at.
Yeah, because I don't remember. Because that was such a groundbreaking thing. I'm like, wait, a spirit of the Avatar can come up and actually fight, along, even though he's the Avatar.
Yeah, that's something that kind of threw me off by surprise. Keep in mind, it's been a while since I've seen the original.
I know. It's been a while since I've seen it too, but it was just something that I was like, shocked about. I'm like, whoa, Kyoshi, out of all people, now coming in, just starting to, be the peace in mind here.
Yeah, but looking at this episode on its own, Kyoshi really did her part in like being a strong warrior.
She was the avatar before Aang was. So
and it really does show like she still has that spirit, that strong fighting spirit in her. And we've seen it in her battle with against the Fire Nation.
Yeah, and we see that right there in that first episode. But yeah, I mean, like, it is a kind of a cool thing to see that Kyoshi and Aang are linking up just in order for them to say, hey, Aang is the avatar. He needs to learn, obviously. And that pretty much is it from the whole first 2 episodes that we saw. So like, I would say for when it comes to originality, there are some things that happen here and there that kind of feels flawed, but kind of accurate. I would say pretty accurate still.
Yeah, like I said before, it's pretty much a combination of both the good and the bad. I mean, when you look at both the good and the bad aspects of the first 2 episodes, you get something that you hope that it turns out to be promising. But there is a chance that it could not be that great. But like I said, since it's the first 2 episodes, it's too early for me to decide.
Yeah, but to be fair, like I may not seen the rest because I know there's 9 episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action series. But to be fair, they are pretty accurate when it came to comparing the live action versus the animated series. So I say pretty accurate, but with more episodes to go, maybe they might throw it off here and there. We'll see. Let's actually talk about the characters in themselves, like the live action characters versus the animated characters. I have to say this. I think they did put up a good cast of live actors comparing to the animated series. Your thoughts on the live action actors?
Yeah, each and every character definitely looks the part of their animated counterparts. Especially when you got, Zuko, who actually has a legit, authentic scar in him. Like, it's not just a burn that you see in that. It's actually a full-on, legit red burn that you see, like, right there.
It's more towards makeup, but to be fair, the makeup kind of does seem that he has a big scar right there.
You got to give props to like the makeup crew for doing this. Not only that, but also the costume designers. Like they really do a really great job of making the costumes authentic to the original.
I mean, if anything, like Aang looks like Aang. Katara, I mean, she looks like a more petite, younger Katara, but the way I'm kind of seeing like Katara's actress, like maybe a little bit more scenes here and there, but I feel like she may not portray her that well compared to the Katara that we know in the animated series.
Oh yeah, no one can surpass Mae Whitman. Mae Whitman will always be Katara.
Well, she's not the voice actor.
No, but like
she's a voice actor.
Mae Whitman.
I'm trying to portray the animated character herself compared to the live action character because I feel like she's just an innocent girl. She's not like the fighting girl that we know from as Katara. You're
still on the appearance of that.
Yes, well, it's more like comparing the character to the animated character. I kind of don't like Katara's character at the live action.
I think Katara looks fine, but then again, this is just an appearance thing. Where,
it's not more appearance thing, but it's more like character wise too. Like, can the live actress be same as comparable to the Katara that is in the animated series?
Like I said before, it's one of those things where it's like, you've seen the first 2 and, like on the one hand, they do their best and they manage to pull off the appearances and the characters. But on the other hand, there is such a thing as looks can be deceiving. And so, it's too early to tell.
I have a feeling like maybe a little bit more episodes coming in for Katara. Maybe the actress who's doing the live action can do a little bit better. But it's been lackluster to say when I see her at the moment. So I'm just putting it out there. Sokka is not bad, okay? Even though he has that sexist thing that may have been missed out when it came to that particular show, he still looks like Sokka. He leads like Sokka. He is the leader of that village, and he knows what to do. I feel like it's not bad for a character like Sokka to compare him with the animated series.
Not only that, but they also keep his, snarky, sarcastic, and comedic side to Sokka.
Yeah, exactly.
As well.
That he's still funny and all that jazz. It's still Sokka himself. But I feel like the best character though is Zuko. He does a good job being Zuko, being the person that wants the Avatar, that wants to be back in the throne. Yeah, he could be Prince Zuko, but he's not the same Prince Zuko that was like reigning the whole thing, So
oh yeah,
and I see his like intensity. He's like angry. He really wants the Avatar. I've seen like that one scene in episode 2 where like he throws stuff around that he missed. Like he got the Avatar and then he escapes. And like what happened? And that's cool that he's doing the right portrayal of Zuko that we see in the animated series.
Oh yeah, definitely the best of the 4, just by the fact of how he captures the intensity of Zuko. He captures the intensity, and he also captures the want. Like he wants to, capture the Avatar to restore the honor. Like he really does nail Zuko down to a T.
Yeah,
with his performance.
If anything, like these 4 actors and actresses are doing pretty well. Again, we'll have to see more episodes about it. But my first impressions are that all are great except for Katara. Please, hopefully Katara can do a better job. We'll see. Again, my first impressions on those actors and actresses. How about there are other characters though, like General Iroh. You had what was it? The people also in that village too. Gran, for example, she was also there too. How about your thoughts on the other secondary characters in the show?
The actor who plays as General Iroh, fun fact, he was also Kim's Convenience. The actor who plays as Iroh, has such wonderful chemistry with Zuko. Like when you see Zuko and Iroh on screen together, the chemistry between the uncle and the nephew, they captured that father son chemistry between the two characters, and it's fun to see their interactions too, where you see Iroh pretty much he tries to help Zuko out. He tries to be his voice of reason, and at the same time though he gets pretty excited about food and jasmine tea.
He does. He keeps on saying stuff about tea, like can I offer you tea? Literally when Aang was in that jail cell, you see what was it, Iroh pretty much say, can I offer you tea? And I'm like,
That's Iroh. That's
yeah.
Then
again, that's him. Like he's supposed to be the funny man. Like he was funny in the show, in the animated show. His mostly thing was tea, and then food out of all places was another thing too. So
not only is he funny, but he's also very gentle. He's very nice, and he's also such a wise man. That the man can really give out some really great life advice.
Indeed, yeah, and he definitely does do a really good job with it. Yes, he's a well-known actor. Yeah. Yes, he is a well-known actor.
Oh god, I was imagining like Zuko's saying to Uncle Iroh, "Uncle, I'm gonna go capture the Avatar, restore my honor," and then I was like, "Okay, see you."
Okay. No more Kim's Convenience references now. This is not Kim's Convenience, okay?
I'm sorry, it was such a fun show.
I know.
had to,
and then again, the village that Katara and Sokka were in, I feel like they did a good job portraying it. Like they were fighting to make sure the Fire Nation doesn't attack them. Gran did a good job as a portrayal. Yes, she may have doesn't have a lot of appearances in the real life show, but it was still meaningful. The fact that she actually knew about the story about the Avatar and that 100 years have passed and the war still goes on. Now they found the Avatar and now the story now continues with the Airbender and all.
To be fair, she didn't appear that often in the original series either. She only appeared in episodes 1 and 2, but
yeah, like what happened in the first episode. Yes,
but they really do with the grandma. They do capture the wise old lady, the wise old grandmother figure to Sokka and Katara. They really do capture the nature of the character.
Yeah, and she may not have a lot of big appearances, but nonetheless, I think she's going to be more meaningful coming up later on. I mean, she gave Katara all these water movement stuff to be an a waterbender. Yes. But yeah, Sokka, on the other hand, he's not a waterbender. He's just a water temporal person.
He's a warrior. He's a fighter.
He's a warrior. Yes, that's why she was training with Suki to be a Kyoshi warrior or a warrior himself. So yes. But besides the characters, I do want to talk about the visuals, like the special effects that had them attacking with fire, with air and water. What about the backgrounds and stuff like that? How impressed were you seeing those visual effects in the show?
The visual effects, the way they capture the water and the fire and the air, they all flowed very well, and the effects definitely looked very convincing. You could tell that the visual effects team really did a good job in enhancing the intensity and the look of each of the bending.
Yes, and I also do like the fact that they're also choreographing to like what you see in the animated series, all the movements that they do in order for them to attack, the airflow and all those push movements here and there.
They got the choreography right as well.
Yeah, exactly, Apple. But imagine they were training from like those who actually helped made Avatar: The Last Airbender animated series become the real life thing.
Yeah, you could definitely show that. You could definitely tell they put a lot of practice to it.
Yeah, and I also do, like I said, I also do love the visuals that they also presented. The air temple looks brilliantly amazing. Yeah.
The production design, it looks so majestic. The production design of each of the lands, such as the air temple, and then where the water tribe lives, and then you see the water village. You see the Kyoshi Island village, especially. It definitely looks like an island. It looks like a Kyoshi village. It looks like a village you want to check out.
Well, it's more towards like a rural Japan sort of like look that they had for Kyoshi Island.
That's what I mean. It really does feel like it's inspired by rural Japan.
Another thing too is that the Fire Nation, like for example, like Zuko's ship, for example. Like, it may just be a ship on the outside looking in, but, like, to make it look like a big ship, like the whole scene where, like, Aang tries to escape from the Fire Nation, looks pretty good to say.
Yeah, not only do they capture the exterior design in terms of the scope and the size, but the interior design looks very impressive as well. It looks very detailed.
Well, I mean, it's just a jail cell.
It is a jail cell, but then you also see Zuko's room looks good.
Yeah, that's right, because he also made those drawings of avatars, too. That's right. Like, the one scene where he actually drew Aang and then he puts it on his wall.
Yeah, so it's not just a jail cell. It's pretty much some particular rooms you see in the ship.
Right. But besides that, I mean, like, overall, it does look brilliant. So, if anything, like, there's a lot of things, again, that we say that could be flawed, that could be bad here and there. But overall, like, when it comes to first impressions for Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action series, in my case, it's not bad. Like, I may continue on watching this series. It is 2 episodes. I only just watched the first 2 episodes of the series, but let me continue on with this series, and it might be impressive. I know some fans are kind of saying, like, oh, it's not that great. Oh, it's not that great. But it's my judgment. Let me see how it goes. And I say, like I said, I've been impressed.
I will say that as a fan, I'm going to continue to keep on watching. Of course, I'm going to keep an open mind. I'm going to, judge for myself what things are good, what things are bad going forward. So
what would be your like rating from the first impressions of Avatar: The Last Airbender?
I'm going to say a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10, okay. I'm not going to put a number. I'm just going to say like it's average. Average to say.
It's average. So, like I said, not as great as the original, not as disastrous as the 2010 film either.
I know that there's a lot of YouTubers that are saying like it's a disaster and stuff like that, but I don't know. I mean, it's too early to tell. The first 2 episodes.
I mean, I could say we've had worse. We've had much worse.
Okay, forget about that movie. Forget about that movie. Oh, God. Yeah. Well, for those who are planning to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, is currently on Netflix right now. All 9 episodes are available for you to watch, so go ahead and check it out on your Netflix app.